All right, let's get right into it. We're going to talk about why so many of us feel like we can't focus anymore, and how we can actually start to fix that by understanding what's going on inside our own heads, specifically with our brain's reward system.
So, does this sound familiar to you? You put your phone down, turn off the TV, and suddenly you feel bored, restless even. That quiet moment feels kind of dull, and you immediately get that itch to grab for something. If you felt that, you're definitely not alone, and there's a very real reason why it's happening.
And that reason, well, it brings us to something called the plenty paradox. And yeah, it's just as strange as it sounds. It's this major contradiction at the heart of our modern lives.
Now this is where things get really weird. I mean, think about it. We live in a world with more entertainment, more food, more information, more of everything than ever before. But here's the kicker. In many of the wealthiest countries, the places with the most access to all this stuff, reported happiness has actually been going down. It's like having access to all the pleasure in the world isn't really making us happier at all.
And look at this. I mean, these numbers are just staggering. Just over a decade ago, the average US adult spent about 3.5 hours a day on digital media. Today, it shot up to nearly 8.5 hours. Every single day, our brains just weren't built to handle that kind of constant bombardment.
And if that wasn't strange enough, check this out. Research actually shows that richer nations often have higher rates of things like anxiety and depression compared to poorer countries. So clearly, having everything at our fingertips is not the answer. So what in the world is going on in our brains?
To really get what's happening, we need to understand the science behind it. And honestly, the best way to do that is with this brilliant analogy from Dr. Anna Lemke, a top psychiatrist at Stanford. She calls it the pleasure-pain seesaw. So first things first, we gotta clear something up about dopamine. We all hear it called the pleasure molecule, right? Well, that's not exactly the whole story. It's way more about motivation. It's the chemical in your brain that says, hey, pay attention, that thing is important. It drives you to go get things. It's more about the wanting than the actual like.
Okay, so picture this, a seesaw. Right now, it's perfectly balanced. This is your brain's happy place, its default setting. It's a state called homeostasis. You're not overjoyed, you're not miserable, you're just level, content. But then, you pick up your phone, right? You scroll through social media, you eat a piece of cake, you watch a great video, and boom, you get a little burst of dopamine, and your seesaw tips way over to the pleasure side. And yeah, that feels great. But your brain, it hates being out of balance.
Okay, but here's the catch, and this is so important. To get that seesaw level again, your brain starts working against the pleasure. It adds weight to the other side. Dr. Lemke calls them pain gremlins. This is that feeling you get right after. The slight come down, that little voice saying, just one more scroll, or I need another cookie. It's your brain desperately trying to get back to neutral.
So you can see where this is going, right? What happens when you're just constantly, day in and day out, slamming that pleasure side of the seesaw? Well, those little pain gremlins, they don't just disappear. They start to stick around. And over time, the pain side of your seesaw gets heavier and heavier until your new baseline, your new normal, is actually tilted toward pain. That's why you start to feel anxious, restless, and just plain unmotivated for no good reason. And this, my friends, is where we get stuck in a really nasty loop. A state where we're always chasing the next high, not to feel good, but just to feel normal again. And just so you know, this isn't some abstract idea. This is real physical stuff happening inside your head. I mean, just look at these brain scans. On the left, that's a brain with healthy dopamine signaling. But on the right, after being overstimulated for a long time, you can see that activity is just fried. The brain has literally turned down the volume on its own reward system to protect itself.
There's actually a word for this feeling, anhedonia. It's when the simple things that used to make you happy, a walk outside, a good chat with a friend, listening to music, they just don't hit the same way anymore. The bar for what feels good has been set so ridiculously high that the small, simple joys of life can't even reach it.
Yeah, this image really hits home, doesn't it? When your seesaw is already weighed down with all those pain gremlins, something as beautiful as a sunset just doesn't have enough juice to tip you back into a state of pleasure. You're just left feeling nothing. And you wonder, why can't I just enjoy this?
All right, so that's the problem. It sounds kind of bleak, right? But the good news is we can absolutely do something about it. We can rebalance our seesaw. So let's talk about a super powerful first step, the 24-hour reset.
But before we get into the solution, I want to clear the air about something you've probably heard of, the dopamine detox or dopamine fast. Now, a lot of neuroscientists will tell you, and they're right, that this name is a little misleading. You can't get rid of dopamine. It's essential for survival. The real goal here isn't to eliminate dopamine, it's to stop the overstimulation and give your poor, overworked brain receptors a much-needed break. So you ready? Here's a simple step-by-step plan for that 24-hour reset. Step 1. Just for 24 hours, go on a total fast from your main digital distractions. No screens. Step 2. Pick a day and tell your friends and family you're going off-grid for a bit. Step 3. Brace yourself. You're probably going to feel anxious, maybe a little irritable. That's withdrawal. It's normal and it will pass. Step 4. When those cravings kick in, don't fight them. Redirect them. Do something hard. Go for a run. Take a cold shower. Lean into effort. And finally, Step 5. After the 24 hours are up, don't just jump back in. Make a plan. Think about how you're going to use this stuff more intentionally from now on.
Look, that 24-hour fast, it's like hitting the emergency stop button. It's powerful. But the real change, the lasting change, happens in what you do next. It's all about building sustainable habits for life after the fast.
So here's your long-term toolkit for keeping that seesaw balanced. First, you've got to create some friction. Delete the apps you mindlessly scroll. Make your bedroom a tech-free zone. Then set clear boundaries, like scheduling your screen time or having phone-free meals. But it's also about what you add back in. Get some sunlight first thing in the morning. Exercise regularly. Prioritize your sleep like it's your job, and invest time in real face-to-face relationships. These things, they give you a slow, steady, and much healthier kind of reward.
And I want to leave you with this one last thought from Dr. Lemke, because it just sums up everything we've talked about perfectly. She says, the relentless pursuit of pleasure and avoidance of pain leads to pain. That's the paradox. By constantly chasing the easy, cheap highs, we wind up feeling worse. The real path back to finding joy in your life might just be learning to be okay with a little bit of boredom, embracing a little effort, and just giving your brain the chance to find its balance again.
All right, quick reset. Blink twice, stretch your shoulders, and don't worry, your health lesson isn't over yet. We're switching gears now, but this next topic is just as important for your body. And if you care about staying healthy the smart way, make sure you're subscribed.
Have you ever stopped and wondered if there are things in your own home, maybe even stuff you use every single day, that could be messing with your health? Well, today we're going to dive into a group of chemicals that might be doing exactly that. They're like these sneaky imposters inside our bodies. So let's pull back the curtain on these hormone imposters and figure out what they are, where they're hiding, and what they might be doing to us.
I mean, that's a pretty wild question, right? We use these things all the time, packing lunches, storing leftovers without even thinking about it. But a whole lot of science is starting to suggest that maybe we should be looking a little closer at the chemical building blocks of our modern world and, how they're interacting with our own biology. So to really get what the problem is, we first have to appreciate the amazing system these chemicals are interfering with in the first place. And that is our body's own incredible communication network. It's called the endocrine system, and really, it's just a collection of glands that make hormones. And you can think of hormones as these tiny chemical messengers. They cruise through our bloodstream, delivering super precise instructions that control pretty much everything: our mood, metabolism, growth, you name it. The best way to picture it is with a key and a lock. A hormone, that's our key, gets released and travels to a cell that has a perfectly shaped lock, which is called a receptor. When that key slides into the lock, bam! The cell gets a message and does a very specific job. It's this beautiful, precise system that works with unbelievably tiny amounts of these hormones. Okay, so if our body has this perfect system of keys and locks, what happens if a counterfeiter shows up and starts making fake keys? Well, that brings us right to the main characters of our story today: endocrine disrupting chemicals, or EDCs for short. Now, one of the biggest and most studied groups of these EDCs are something called xenoestrogens. The name kind of gives it away, right? Xeno means foreign, and they specifically mimic the hormone estrogen. These are synthetic, man-made chemicals that literally did not exist on planet Earth a century ago. But now they're just about everywhere. This chart right here really gets to the core of why these things can fool our bodies so well. On one side, you have natural estrogen, made by your body, perfectly regulated. On the other side, a xenoestrogen like BPA. It's man-made and our exposure is totally random. But look at that bottom line, the part in bold. Their chemical structures are so similar. And that right there is the secret to their disguise.
So here's the bottom line. Because their shape is so similar, these counterfeit keys can actually fit into our cells' locks. Sometimes they just jam the lock, so the real key, the real hormone, can't get in to do its job. Other times, they actually turn the lock, sending a signal when they're not supposed to. Either way, it creates total chaos in our body's finely tuned communication system.
So, where are these chemical imposters actually hiding?
You might be surprised.
Let's unmask some of the most common ones you'd find in your everyday life.
Okay, I know a list like this can look a little intense, so let's just focus on a couple you've probably already heard of. How about BPA, bisphenol A? That's used to make those hard, clear plastics, like some water bottles, and it's also used to line most food and soda cans. Then you've got phthalates. These are the chemicals that make plastics soft and bendy. Think about your shower curtain, or vinyl flooring, or even some of your shampoos and lotions. They are everywhere.
And hey, if you think you've solved the problem by just buying stuff that says BPA-free, well, this finding is a real eye-opener. A big study in 2011 tested hundreds of different plastic products and found that the vast majority, including the ones proudly labeled BPA-free, still leach chemicals that acted like estrogen. And get this, in some cases, the safer BPA-free alternatives were actually even more potent. So, this all leads to the big question, the one that really matters. What are the potential consequences of all this chemical exposure? And what does the science actually say? This is where things get complicated.
The list of potential health worries it's long and it's serious. Let's just talk about a couple. When it comes to reproduction, studies have linked some of these EDC exposures to things like fertility problems. And then there's development. Hormones are absolutely critical when a baby is growing, so exposure during pregnancy and childhood is a huge area of concern, with potential links to things like learning disabilities. And look, this isn't just some fringe science we're talking about. The Endocrine Society, which is one of the top professional organizations in this field, has come out with official statements saying that EDCs are a significant concern to public health. They're saying the evidence is strong enough that we need to be paying very close attention. But, and this is a really critical point to keep things balanced, proving that one specific chemical directly causes one specific disease in humans is incredibly difficult. Think about it. We are all exposed to this giant cocktail of chemicals every single day of our lives. So trying to isolate just one and prove it caused an illness years down the road, that's a massive, massive scientific challenge. And here's where the science gets really weird and flips what we think we know on its head. Normally in toxicology, we say the dose makes the poison, right? More of something is worse. But a lot of these EDCs don't play by that rule. With them, it seems that very, very low doses, these chronic, tiny exposures we get every day, can sometimes have bigger biological effects than medium-level doses. And that, of course, makes them super tricky to study and even harder to regulate. So where do we possibly go from here? Well, to figure out the path forward, it actually helps to look back and learn some lessons from the past. The story of PCBs is a pretty powerful lesson. For 50 years, they were used in all sorts of industrial stuff. They were banned in the US way back in 1977. But even today, more than 4 decades later, they are still with us. They just don't break down, they're in our soil, in our water, they build up in the food chain, and yep, they are still found inside our bodies. It really shows you the long-term stakes of the chemicals we decide to create. So what's the plan? The World Health Organization has laid out a pretty clear roadmap. First, we need way better testing. I mean, there are tens of thousands of chemicals out there, and we've only really checked a tiny fraction for this kind of activity. Second, we need more research on that cocktail effect, because in the real world, we aren't exposed to one chemical, we're exposed to hundreds all at once. Third, better reporting. You should have the right to know what's in the products you bring into your home. And finally, collaboration. This is a global problem, and it's going to need a global solution. And while that's a great roadmap for governments and scientists, it kind of leaves us with a deeper question, doesn't it? Proving harm can take decades. We saw that with PCBs. But if we wait for absolute 100% proof, we might be acting way too late. And this forces us to ask a really tough question. When the science is this complex and the stakes are this high, what does it actually mean to be cautious? It's a question that we're all going to be grappling with for a long, long time.
All right, quick reset. Blink twice, stretch your shoulders, and don't worry, your health lesson isn't over yet. We're switching gears now, but this next topic is just as important for your body. And if you care about staying healthy the smart way, make sure you're subscribed.
All right, let's talk about something I'm sure we've all felt. You know the drill.
You kick off your morning with that perfect, life-giving cup of coffee. You're on fire, you're focused, you're ready to take on the world. But then, bam, 2 o'clock in the afternoon hits, and you just smack right into an energy wall. You feel sluggish, foggy, and all of a sudden a nap sounds like the best idea you've ever had. But what if I told you the problem isn't the coffee, it's when you drink it? Does that sound familiar? You're leaning on that morning jolt just to get going, only to feel like your battery has been completely drained by mid-afternoon. It's this super frustrating up and down cycle. But it turns out you're not just imagining it. There's a really interesting biological dance happening that explains this whole thing. And hey, you are so not alone in feeling this way. This afternoon slump is so incredibly common that a pretty popular biohack started making the rounds, promising a super simple fix. It's called the 90-minute rule. The big claim is that by just waiting a bit to have your first cup, you can completely dodge that energy crash. But to really get why people believe this, we need to look at a little bit of brain chemistry. Okay, let's get friendly with a little molecule called adenosine. The easiest way to think about it is like a sleepometer for your body. From the second you wake up, your body starts using energy, and adenosine is basically the exhaust from that process. As the day goes on, more and more adenosine builds up in your brain, creating what scientists call sleep pressure. The higher the adenosine, the higher the pressure, and the more you feel that pull towards sleep. So picture this, in your brain, you've got all these tiny little docking stations, or receptors. Think of them like parking spots. Adenosine's job is to pull into those parking spots, and once it's parked, it sends out the signal, hey, we're getting tired here. But then, in comes caffeine. Caffeine is basically a master impersonator. It looks so much like adenosine that it can zoom in and steal all the best parking spots first. It blocks adenosine from docking, which means the tired signal never gets sent. And that, right there, is why you suddenly feel so awake. Which brings us right back to the rule itself. The 90-minute rule protocol is, well, incredibly simple. You wake up, and this is the key, you don't immediately make coffee. You wait. You give it about 90 to 120 minutes. Then you have your first coffee. And the people who champion this method swear that this simple delay is the secret sauce to smooth, sustained energy all day long. And the theory behind it sounds pretty legit on the surface. It's built on 2 main ideas. First, the idea is that by waiting, you let your body naturally wash away any adenosine that's still hanging around from when you were asleep. That way, caffeine isn't starting its day already in a fight. The second idea is that it stops caffeine from messing with your body's natural morning cortisol spike. That's the hormone that helps you feel awake and alert all on its own. It's a really compelling story, isn't it? It connects a few scientific dots and gives you a simple, easy-to-follow rule. But, and you knew there was a but coming, what does the actual scientific evidence have to say about all this? Does this popular biohack really hold up when you put it under the microscope? And this is where the whole thing kind of starts to unravel. When you look at the actual research, it's pretty clear. There is simply no evidence to suggest that the timing of your coffee has anything to do with preventing the crash. The crash happens for one simple reason: the caffeine wears off. That's it. So let's just break down those 2 main claims one by one. First, this whole idea of clearing out morning adenosine. Well, studies actually show the complete opposite is true. Your adenosine levels start to rise, and rise quickly from the moment you wake up. So waiting doesn't clear anything. Okay, what about the cortisol interference? Turns out, for anyone who drinks coffee regularly, your body gets used to it, and the effect of caffeine on your cortisol is pretty tiny anyway. So yeah, the 2 main pillars of this theory just don't stand up. So here's the real story, the actual reason for that dreaded 2 p.m. crash. It's not about when you had your coffee. It's all about what was happening while that caffeine was working its magic. Remember, while caffeine was blocking all those receptor parking spots, adenosine didn't just go home. Oh no, it kept building up, just waiting on the sidelines. The moment the caffeine wears off and those parking spots open up, you get this massive, sudden flood of adenosine that rushes in to dock all at once. That huge, overwhelming, tired now signal, that's the crash. And we all know what that crash feels like, right? It's not just a gentle, oh, I'm a little sleepy. It's that sudden brick wall of fatigue. It's feeling irritable for no reason, sometimes it's a headache, and it's definitely that brain fog that makes it impossible to concentrate on anything. It's an abrupt nosedive, not a smooth landing. Okay, so the 90-minute rule is pretty much a bust. But that doesn't mean you're just doomed to crash every afternoon. If the real goal here is to avoid that energy roller coaster, what are the strategies that are actually backed by science? Let's talk about what really works. The real solution isn't one magic rule.
It's about being a little smarter with your caffeine strategy. Instead of one giant dose in the morning, try having smaller amounts spread out a bit. This avoids that massive peak and the inevitable crash that follows. Pay attention to your total daily intake, because a super high dose just guarantees a bigger adenosine buildup. And this one is huge. Stop all caffeine early enough in the afternoon so it doesn't mess with your sleep quality. Oh, and a super simple tip, drink a big glass of water before your coffee. Dehydration can make you feel tired all by itself.
So, what's the deal with all the people who absolutely swear by the 90-minute rule? It's totally possible they do feel better, but probably not for the reason they think. If you start waiting 90 minutes for coffee, you're probably drinking more water during that time, and better hydration definitely boosts energy. And you can never, ever underestimate the power of the placebo effect. If you truly believe a new routine is making you feel amazing, it often will. The big takeaway here is that the benefits are real, but they're not coming from the specific timing of the coffee.
And that really leaves us with one last question to think about. When you look at your own daily routine, is it just a habit you've fallen into, or is it actually based on how your body works? Now that you know the real science behind caffeine and that sneaky molecule adenosine, you have the power to actually manage your energy in a smarter way without having to rely on myths. So take a look. What's really driving your routine?
Thank you for being here with me today. Remember, small choices create big changes. Keep nourishing your health with love and consistency. See you in the next Vital Elixir video.